It's not easy to follow in the footsteps of a legend, not even a junior-grade motorcycle legend like Honda's CB400F. Its half-life on this planet was so brief that its biography is but a short paragraph in the magnum opus of moto history, yet it still managed to earn cult bike status amongst the cafe crazies. Many of them even vowed never to forgive Honda, not only for terminating a magnificent motorcycle after just 3 short model years, but for having the gall to think that the CB400 Hawk, a twin-cylinder econo-bike, would be a suitable replacement. Well, listen up all you fans of the late great CB400F, the 400 Four is back. The catch, you see, is that this bike, called the CBX400F, is sold only in Japan, and American Honda professes to have no intention whatsoever of bringing it into this country. Not now, not ever. And for the same reasons that sent the original CB400F down the tubes, it's so costly to manufacture that it can't be competitively priced, and the target audience is felt to be too small to satisfy Honda's minimum sales volume requirements. That's probably okay with you though, since most riders didn't lament the passing of the old 400 Four any more than they do the new one's failure to reach these shores. They are, after all, only 400s, which equates to buzzy, twitchy, cramped, slow little motorcycles, the kinds of bikes in which you have absolutely no interest. The CBX400F is none of those things. We know we spent an entire month testing one that had been imported by DG Performance Accessories of Anaheim, California. And we're talking about a mid-13-second motorcycle here, folks. A bike that'll blow not only the old CB400F into the weeds, but a lot of bigger and more highly exalted machinery as well. We're talking about a bike that weighs just 402 pounds and has a low 37-inch seat, but that doesn't feel at all undersized. A motorcycle that will dart off into a fast corner at the very thought of turning, yet is as stable on the open road as something twice its size. We're talking about an honest-to-God for-real motorcycle that just might, if you could get your hands on one, make you forget that the original 400 Four ever existed. Your first indication of the CBX400F for realness can be found on the tachometer face, where the engine redline is set at an unbelievable 11,500 revolutions per minute. Nothing but purebred racing machinery has ever had a redline that high, especially a 4-stroke. But Honda has struck the mother lode of RPM on this bike without resorting to anything but its tried and proven short-stroke 4 valves per cylinder technology. The sizable bore of the highly oversquare engine provides the large valve area needed for a high power output, while the extremely small and light valves in each 99 8cc cylinder permit ultra-high RPM, and the short stroke yields the low piston speeds necessary to prevent the engine from ripping itself apart at redline. Indeed, but your mental tachometer just isn't calibrated to deal with 11,500 revolutions per minute, so you'd never know that the engine wasn't self-destructing by the way it sounds at those speeds. The CBX400F wails like a runaway air raid siren as the engine approaches redline, and the shrieking resonates inside your helmet so loudly that it's all you can hear. The intake roar alone is menacing enough, as though you in the seat are about to be sucked into the 26mm KNCV carbs at any second, and you can't help but feel that something, a piston, a rod, perhaps one of the 16 valves that is being hammered open almost 100 times a second, is going to come flying up and unicize you on the spot. Of course, this all sounds more apocalyptic than it really is, since the CBX400F is perfectly happy to run all day in these absurd RPM ranges. What is surprising, though, is that despite the engine's high RPM inclinations, it's not at all peaky. The best performance obviously comes in the upper part of the power band, say between 7,500 revolutions per minute and redline. And to that end, the slick shifting 6-speed gearbox has very closely spaced ratios that keep the revs from dipping below 9 grand during a WFO run. Nonetheless, the power delivery is almost linear from idle to redline, with only a slight increase in acceleration in the upper third of the RPM range. Some of the CBX400F reasonable mid-range stems from the exhaust system, which pairs off the cylinders that fire at even 360-degree intervals. The conventional arrangement is cosmetically more symmetrical but not as efficient, since it adjoins cylinders that fire at uneven intervals. The same can be said about the chassis, which has a distinctly racy personality when in motion but is comprised mostly of ideas that have seen service on other Honda models. The front fork is air-assisted, as is the single rear shock that is pro-linked to an absolutely gorgeous cast aluminum swing arm. There are no provisions for making damping adjustments at either end, perhaps a concession to the inordinate high cost of a 400cc Four, but you will find one of Honda's track anti-dive mechanisms on the left fork slider leg. The steering geometry on the double-down tube frame is a touch slower than the old 400F, and the wheelbase is about an inch longer. Both tires are H-rated 18 inches mounted on attractive Comstar wheels. But due to the CBX400F lightweight and well-balanced chassis design, all of its handling magic is found in the riding, not on the spec sheet. The bike is so inherently stable that you don't have to concentrate on keeping it going straight when you're not turning. Yet it practically begs to be tossed into a hard turn. It banks over with remarkable ease, even when braking hard, and it willingly follows whichever line you choose. You can even change lines in mid-corner if you so desire, partly because the steering remains so neutral when the horizon is tilted over at crazy angles, and partly because there's so much cornering clearance that you can usually tighten up your arc if need be. You have to lean this machine way over before the center stand feet contact the ground. Even with no air at all in the suspension units, it takes a fairly aggressive charge through a corner before hardware kisses highway. Overall, the CBX400F handles corners of all sizes, shapes, and speeds with aplomb, never wiggling or twitching in the least. But the bike has its finest hour in the tight twisties, where the quick steering and high-rev S-Ving engine rocket it from turn to turn about as fast as most riders care to go. Still, given its propensity for backroad blitzing, the Honda is quite comfortable in cruise mode. The engine is pleasantly smooth below 6,000 revolutions per minute, and acceptably so above it, and the ride quality most of the time is just short of plush. Only certain small abrupt bumps deliver any harshness to the rider, and even some of those jolts would prove less annoying if the seat were more comfortable. It's rather firm and ill-fitted to the nether regions, rendering it a not particularly luxurious place to park for more than an hour or two. It's tempting to dismiss the seat's problems as merely the result of the bike being tailored for a 5', 5,130-pound Japanese, and not for the average American, but there's nothing elsewhere in the ergonomics to back that supposition. The riding position offers a near-perfect Euro-style sport bike triangulation, even for 6-footers, and the spacing between the rear set pegs and the foot controls seems spot-on for immersion feet, and a large rider can even see what he's left behind, since the mirrors are spaced fairly far apart despite being mounted on narrowish cast aluminum clip-on bars. A rider of any size, though, can appreciate the most innovative feature on the entire machine, the brakes. Fundamentally, they're conventional ventilated rotor hydraulic disc brakes, one per wheel, the difference being that each disc is enclosed within a housing reminiscent of a drum brake hub.